Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of the hosts of Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. In this, the fourth of 4 podcasts, we discuss some research that we were part of on a student attendance research pilot project with some school districts in Northwestern Ontario. In this episode, we talk about the impact that this project had on student attendance. The data that we collected does not show statistically significant differences in attendance data between the students who were part of the ATSA 2x10 and those who weren't. But wait, there's more to the story and to the stories. Listen and read some of the heartwarming stories of the dedication that principals have shown in making a difference, the crucial need for streamlined data access, and the pivotal role of collaboration in driving effective change to address absenteeism. Visit our website, www.restorative.ca. Make sure you read through those anecdotes and stories. They're really some worthwhile stories. So let's listen in to some great stories with Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. So the data, was there a difference between students who participated in this 2x10 intervention and those who didn't? And the short answer is there was no statistical difference between those two groups. In the middle of that, however, there are a bunch of stories. Steve, you had a story of one principal that you worked with.
Yeah, I worked with one principal, and he really bought into this 2x10 idea, this idea that he could go and talk to kids that he maybe doesn't talk to very often or hadn't talked to before, but just meet them casually in the hallways or wherever in the classrooms. And so he created, like we had intentionally said, create a my list of 10 kids, and he had done that and created a chart, an Excel spreadsheet chart, and was tracking those kids every day and putting them on, going to the attendance data and collecting off whether they're there, late, absent, whatever. He was also color coding them. He had them all color coded based on whether they're a high risk, a medium risk, a low risk. Were they a kid who was going to be absent 10 to 20 days a year, or was their rate going to be 30 to 40? So he had color codes too, so he could visually see, hey, there's a couple of bright reds. I better make an attempt to talk to this kid. And so he had taken this project and was really adding to it because he saw the value of tracking these kids. And then every day he would look at it and say, I really got to intentionally go talk to this kid and this kid because they're here today, but they were gone the last 2 days. And now I got to go talk to them and find out what's going on. And then he was adding more names to his list. And as I was saying earlier, he would find out who else is in the sphere of influence of that child. I'm going to add them on and see what their attendance is. If their best friend is coming to school and they're not, maybe I'll talk to the best friend. Or maybe they're both not coming and I need to add that other one to my list. So he was really using the data to drive his intentional decisions every day of who he was going to go and talk to, and maybe even what he was going to talk about. And then he wanted to expand his list with all these others. And he was adding family members. You might have a boy or a girl in grade 7 or 8 who has sketchy attendance, but their younger siblings are there every day. So he was tracking siblings as well to see what their rates were. And at one point we talked to, and he showed me his graph, and he had a younger sister who was attendance was almost perfect, and also it dropped right off the precipice. And I said, what happened there? He goes, hockey season started. And every time he went to a tournament, the whole family went, so she had to go too. So not only was he tracking her attendance, but he also knew the reasons why. So it was interesting but just the use of data. To that question, did this project have an impact on attendance? Overall, no. But on some one-to-one cases and some small cases, I would say yes, it did.
His intentionality and choosing who he was going to speak with that day or needed to speak with, I just want to clarify, he wasn't speaking about attendance when he went to do that. It was just, that was my touch point with them to see and carry on the relationship building. It wasn't as a principal going out to talk about attendance.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've always felt very strongly is that working on attendance solutions, there's no one size that fits all. And so what we saw in this project too is that this didn't work for everyone. However, within the overall statistics, there were students who were very successful at coming back to school, as your story illustrates. Another thing that really struck me, and this is something that we've run up against, is just access to attendance data. We work with 5 different school boards, and if you look at this report, we only have the attendance data from 3 of them. Just think about that. They They did not get their attendance data together after 3-4 months and were not able to submit it. Just that access to the data, and this is data at a school board level. So if this is a problem, even for a small report like this, like what are the chances of a principal or a teacher actually getting some of the attendance data? So there were some real concerns that we had with just knowing where things are at. You can have a gut sense, but to actually have the attendance report, we're not anywhere close to making sure that people know where things are actually at.
Whether boards feel open to share or whether they've got the technical capacity to share, I think they do. I think they run into a lot of these privacy issues, and they're a little worried about who's going to do what with the data. So we want to make sure we're not just giving it out. But unfortunately, when you're doing a project like ours, and you need access to the data to know if what you're doing is having an effect. Imagine if you're like teaching math or language and you're giving tests to kids or you're teaching in a certain way, but you didn't know if the way you were teaching was going to have an effect. And we'll let you know 3 months from now if what you're doing tomorrow is working or not. I don't know if I should keep doing it or not. I don't know if it's going to have an effect. I need feedback more, almost not instantaneously, but more regularly, so I can determine if the things I'm doing are having the desired effect. So I'll keep on doing them, not doing them. And it's unfortunate. So we're trying to tell teachers in this project, keep doing this. We think it'll work, but we can't tell you if it'll work because it might take us 3 or 4 months to find out. But so we do need having access to that data is so important. The story of that principals have access to that data. You can look at the attendance sheet. He was creating his own tracking system on just the kids he wanted because he was just going to the daily attendance. He was going class to class. Is Johnny there? No. And he's putting an X in his box. Teachers could do that on their own. If they're tracking 10 kids or 5 or 10 kids, they could every day determine if that kid is there and start to create their own tracking system. That's adding another layer of work for them. And they're already feeling that they're doing enough. So
yeah, it really needs to be a team approach. But somebody can gather this information, and then as a team, you're discussing who's going to do what with it from there. Once we have the answers, to have 10 different people collecting similar information is not a good use of time, right?
No,
so there is a more streamlined way to do it. You just have to ask the right questions sometimes and have a point person to do it, and it is doable within your system.
I guess the only final comment would be is from our standpoint as a project designer, or creating this project, we found out that data is an important driver to this being successful. And so as we're designing this project in collaboration with school boards or universities or whatever, we have to really push that it's important that somehow the participants have access to that data in a more timely manner. And as the designers of the project, that's maybe partly our role. We work with these school boards to say, yeah, we think this project's going to be great, but we need your support. We need this data, and teachers need to get this data in a timely manner. How can we make this work? Because going ahead with the project without that is going to have very limited results. What do we do about that? We need the support of the school board. We need to work with them, which is very Restorative. And they need to work with us to make these projects successful.
Other than the tracking and for statistical purposes, is that people need to start to ask the questions behind the data. And that's what we really try to reinforce with the project, is to ask questions to understand what's happening with the student. The data gives you the starting point, but then you need to ask questions, and that will make the movement for you.
Data-driven strategies are pivotal to nurturing student attendance. While some interventions may not yield immediate statistical changes, the power of a restorative relational approach remains a beacon of hope. As we navigate the challenges of data accessibility and integration, it becomes increasingly apparent to us that collaboration and streamlined approaches are key to achieving impactful outcomes. Our shared responsibility as educators and administrators is to not only collect data, but to actively inquire and interpret and unravel the narratives hidden within. For more information, please visit our website, www.restorative.ca. As we do this work of research and discovery, let's do it with intention and with purpose to unlock every student's full potential.